next section, please welcome Illia. He's a co-founder of Near. He will be delivering a keynote speech called Next Frontier of Open Web. Now I'm going to pass down the mic to Illia. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Illia, and I'm co-founder of Near. And today I want to talk about next frontier of the open web. The way we see the open web is the world where people control their assets, data, and power of governance. This is the world where we have everyone having access to all of this, having ability to interact with all the applications. Applications themselves are composables that are able to work with each other. And there's a clear understanding of how these applications are changing, what's their lifespan, and ideally they continue operating beyond any single team or people supporting it. That's why it's building on open source, it's building on kind of open money that Bitcoin introduced, and going beyond that, building the Web3 open web world. And to achieve this vision, right, this vision means, billions of people actually using this. You need a simple, secure, and scalable infrastructure. You need something that can truly scale to billions of users, meaning it can actually allow them to interact, to have their accounts, to have their funds, to link their data into this. And so to achieve that, the only way to do this is through parallel execution, through actually sharding the execution, through sharding the blockchain. So Near has been building the first truly sharded blockchain in this ecosystem to really deliver kind of the scale for billions of users. At the same time, it needs to be simple to use, right? When we talk about billions of users, this is not the people who are familiar with technology. This is not the people who are familiar with cryptography. It's not going to be the people who will know what hash of a public key is. And so how do we allow them to use this, to understand this, but at the same time, kind of is really easy onboarding. And so focusing on, simplicity of account model, right? Having usernames as accounts, having different keys with different permissions to allow different devices to be added, right? Kind of more similar to OAuth to flows that users are more used to from, Active Directory, from, login with WeChat, with Facebook, with Google. And at the same time, hiding the blockchain from the user, right? How can we make it easier, not visible? And part of it is also, it needs to work really fast such that it's almost invisible to the user. So fast finality is a must. We also need to make it really simple to build, right? The developers should be able to build with the languages they're familiar with and really onboard into the ecosystem with the tooling they're used to. Security is a huge concern, and it's kind of spans both from how to build infrastructure in a secure way, but also how to make it easy for users to onboard and not feel that the money will be stolen, the thing they're using gonna fall apart, there will be a rug pull in applications they use. So I'll talk more about this, but extremely important to do this. And beyond this, as this infrastructure scales, we want to make sure that it is carbon neutral, it is sustainable, it is actually working with kind of the ecosystem to improve sustainability in the world. So Near is actually energy efficient, certified carbon neutral through South Pole. And so we also invite everyone else to kind of expand on that as well. So we've launched in October 2020, and the mainnet fully decentralized. And since then, there's over 560 projects now, companies building on the ecosystem. There's 400,000 communities, over 11 million accounts. and kind of over 150 million transactions. It's pretty big developer ecosystem. I think it's fourth largest and second fast growing. There's 2,000 developers, and obviously this continue accelerating. So for developers in the audience, right, the kind of because Near is designed for this developer experience and user experience, there is a whole host of tools, whole host of kind of capabilities that are there for developer to really start kind of both building in the ecosystem, but also building for the user. And so check out the developer tools at high level, programming languages that you're familiar with, JavaScript, Rust, and potentially more, because underneath it's WebAssembly. It's the same kind of platform that's used in browsers. It allows to execute pretty much generic programs. And there's a lot of teams in the ecosystem, broader WebAssembly ecosystem, that are working on compilers and tools for that. And so you're able to really take programming languages and existing pieces of software and run them on Near ecosystem. And I'll mention Aurora being an interesting example because it actually took existing part of the code base written in Rust and just ran it as a smart contract. Near Wallet is, easy onboarding. You're able to onboard people through links. You're able to kind of drop NFTs through, one time, for example, private key. So because having all this kind of flexibility on account model allows you to really create new experiences and high blockchain as much as possible. Education is huge. The space is still very little, right? I mean, with few thousand developers, we're one of the biggest developer ecosystems. So really working across university and Near certified developer to bring in more developers to really educate and kind of showcase and then give like practical problems that people can solve. So check out near.org education if you really want to get into space. The contract itself is actually getting percentage of fees. And so this allows to create new business models for developers, especially around open source that didn't exist before. And so it's really exciting because now you can build new pieces of software that are open source, but they're actually making money from the usage. And obviously, the ecosystem is expanding, and there's a lot of funding in the ecosystem. Near grants has been one of the drivers, but also proximity grants for DeFi. There's a number of eco funds in the ecosystem, like MetaWeb, Move, that are really supporting kind of early stage protocols and projects on the Near ecosystem. So check them out. So kind of really looking across, we are on a journey to this billion users, right? And obviously the infrastructure is not there yet. Near started with running one shard and has been proving out the whole infrastructure. But as it's been evolving, right, last year launched Simple Nightshade, which is really starting to shard state and then allowing to run 4 shards at the same time. And kind of the whole point of Near's design, right, is to make it simple for users and developers. Is really not kind of getting them involved in the details of how the scaling works. And to achieve that, it's abstracted out, right? The developers and users are not actually interacting with shards directly. Sharding is happening underneath. Similarly, how this happens when you're using any normal Web2 application. And so when this resharding happened kind of late last year, there has been zero impact on the users or developers, right? Like it went from 1 shard to 4 shards completely seamlessly, pretty much just expanding capacity of the network. And so kind of the next stage of this is going to be launching in the next couple of months is really allowing to kind of have more active participants in the network, scaling to 300-400 active validators. And then beyond that, switching to pretty much only chunk-only producers across the network, lowering kind of hardware requirements for everyone. The final stage, right, the stage we're really working toward as the ecosystem is dynamic resharding. This is a stage where as the demand for the network grows, right? As more applications launch and some applications become more popular, the network itself expands. And so the best mental model for near kind of sharding for near ecosystem, the blockchain itself is the idea that the blocks actually can grow in size, right? And so as the demand for the block size grows, the blocks can grow in size, adding more nodes to the network, processing more things in parallel. And to do that, there's still a lot of work, but this is kind of the roadmap that's been progressing toward. And this will add this ability to linearly scale with the demand to the usage. Now, this is the protocol itself, right? Around it, there's a number of kind of projects and protocols, infrastructure, and applications that are working, as well as a whole stack of, I kind of mentioned, eco funds, proximity grants, of entities that are helping projects to be successful. And the Near Foundation is kind of at the basis of it, working on education as well as grants. There's Proximity Labs, DeFi, Human Guild on gaming, regional hubs kind of across the world, from China to Ukraine and Balkans to Kenya and US and LATAM. Now, diving into infrastructures, there's a number of core players, right? There's a lot of different aspects of Near Protocol that different companies and projects are really focused on. And so Pagoda is one of those players that really focused on delivering Web3 startup platform. This is all the tooling you need to truly build startups in the ecosystem. And so it starts obviously with blockchain data, with infrastructure. And because a lot of the core developers of the blockchain protocol are in Pagoda as well. Beyond that, building on this is analytics, right? Understanding what's happening with this data, with the users, and then defining triggers and alarms and kind of interactions with that. Security is also comes in here because you can actually have an interactive security model which understands what's happening with your smart contracts, with your network, with your application, and is able to potentially pause it or trigger some alarm. Beyond that, there's interaction with wallets, with the user, notifications, all the things you need to connect your application to the user level, front end application side. And then beyond that, what you need to actually do a startup, right? So beyond just building, you need to create a management structure, to issue a token, to create NFTs, to do marketing. And so all this tooling really links up together in Pagoda's developer console. Like, it actually allows to have a singular view into your Web3 startup across all of those pieces. And that's so check out Pagoda. I mean, still building out a lot of the stack, but this is really the way to kind of build in the future. At the same time, there's a lot of other ecosystems that have kind of developers who want to launch applications, and there are a few different interoperability protocols that are offering kind of amazing capabilities. Aurora being really interesting because it's a EVM smart contract that runs on Near. So I mentioned you can take existing piece of code, right? EVM smart code that was running inside, for example, one of the Ethereum clients, and just run it as a smart contract on Near, right? Hooking in all the data, reads and writes. And obviously, you need all the tooling around it. You need, RPC nodes and stuff like this. But this is what Aurora delivers. It's a full-on compatible experience, but that runs as a smart contract, right? It's completely composable with other smart contract on Near. And at the same time, it has, support with MetaMask truffle. The base token that, your smart contracts use is ETH. And they actually yesterday launched, or on 17th launched the Aurora Plus. Aurora Plus is really the ability to have a transaction fee, like no transaction fee experience on Aurora. And so this is really where the innovation goes, right? Is kind of removing the barriers to entry, getting users to truly use the blockchain and kind of hide all of the complexity that is going under it. And so check out Aurora Plus. It's really powerful, and it's going to be expanding to kind of across the whole Near ecosystem. The other side of this is really how do we scale beyond what the even sharded network can do, right? Sometimes you need to customize how transactions are processed. Sometimes you need to really change how the runtime is done. And so what Octopus is offering is ability to launch app chains, like custom application chains that are hooked into Near ecosystem. It's pretty much a leasing security model. It's extremely cheap for the app chain to lend, and at the same time, it's fully hooked into Near ecosystem. It's able to interoperate with it and with all the other chains that Near is linked to through Rainbow Bridge. And so Rainbow Bridge is technology, and it's not the only bridge, but it's the only trustless, permissionless protocol right now that connects to Ethereum. It's the only one that actually is running light clients on both sides to verify the security of both chains when the assets are transferred, when the kind of communication happens. But actually, what Rainbow Bridge is really just ability to read the state and kind of all the transaction data, block data of the other chain. And you can program whatever experience you want on top of that, right? It can be reading the transactions that are locking and unlocking tokens. It can be interacting with another contract on that chain. It can be reading the state of that contract, like reading the chain link state from the Ethereum on Near. And so that allows truly to build kind of lots of different ways to interconnect the chains. So all of these are ways you can interoperate or kind of integrate existing or kind of other ecosystems applications into the Near ecosystem. On the other side, there's a huge world of Web 2 that exists that is not able to participate in Web 3. And it's not able to participate because they're not able to put all the data they have publicly, right? And it fully encrypted data is not like they cannot work on. And so to push beyond that, right, there is a private shard. Private shard is a way to run infrastructure like Near shard that's completely within a business's firewalls, and it still can run across like contracts. It can still have data, and all this is checked in as hashes on a public chain, kind of similar to how other shards as well synchronized. And so that allows to have smart contracts that are interacting between public and private, between different private shards. You can have all the assets being bridged and interacted. You can also run kind of consortium networks if you want, but you can also just have a dedicated private shard for your own company. And obviously you can run Aurora in there as well. So all this is a way to bring in all of this kind of Web 2 existing companies, startups or full-on enterprises to start interacting with Web 3 without needing to fully move all of their interactions to public chain. And Calimera is a company that's building this technology and offering kind of both technology as well as software as a service to run this. Now, I mentioned security, and so a lot of work went in to build simple experiences as well as create enough flexibility so that developers can build simple experiences like Aurora Plus, which kind of completely hide blockchain and offers you a very straightforward kind of Web 2 experience without fees. Now, security is on the other side something that there's still a lot of work to do, right? Users are truly nervous about holding crypto, about self-custody, seed phrases, even though this is, kind of the mission there is they have control. They're truly nervous and uncomfortable with doing that. And at the same time, the applications are constantly getting hacked. There's vulnerabilities, there's malicious intent, and the users are kind of getting stuck in that, right? Like especially the less technical users that come to this, the more the malicious things are happening. So how do we go beyond seed phrase? Well, because of near account model, you're actually able to create new experiences. They don't always mean it's a full custody, and they may be not complete self custody. It can be somewhere in between, and the user can decide where in between they want to live, right? Because you can have number of different keys with different permissions on the user account. As a user, you can decide that you want to trust the bank, but not with your full custody, but with ability to recover your account over time. You can trust that multiple banks need to come in to recover. You can trust your friends. You can trust some other set of kind of guardians. At the same time, you can have 2FA. So Near Wallet been running 2FA for a year now, where you actually can initiate transactions, and a centralized server will uses your second factor to confirm this transaction. And this centralized server is not able to initiate transactions. It's not able to do anything on its own. It only can confirm the transactions. And what it allows to do is actually have an active detection model, right? It's actually something that can detect if your transaction looks suspicious, if your transaction potentially, trying to move all your money out of this account that looks suspicious, maybe pause it, maybe make sure that not just second factor, but something else is confirmed. And so you can have like lots of different experiences built in on top of this kind of very, very flexible model. And at the same time, we're talking about contract hacks. We're talking about, interacting with something that user, we always say like read the code, right? For developers, potentially we do that, but most of the time, 99.99% of users will not do it. And so how do we surface this information? Well, we need to have it on blockchain. We need to have registries that are checked in on the blockchain, that are tracking contract audits, that are tracking security notices, that are linked into a bug bounties. This way, in the wallet, when you're interacting with the contract, when you're signing a transaction, you actually surface the information, what's going on with this contract, what's going on with this, like, is there open bug bounties? Is this audited? Is the audit is outdated? All this information can be presented at the time to the user and make them able to even make decisions around it, right? And wallet can actually stop things that look suspicious and vulnerable, right? Wallets and kind of wallet services can now run active detection models on the contracts, partner with bounty networks to really detect if something is happening and potentially block or at least pause the user's interaction with that. So there's a lot more to do, but the capabilities we have with the blockchain itself is actually should be used to secure the user. It should be used to protect them from the interactions they're having. So what's next, right? A lot of this is done. Security is obviously still in many ways work in progress. But beyond that, the biggest things are really coming in the next set of protocols, right? It's social graph, its ability to build social graphs and use them across different applications. It's ways to create communication protocols, like notifications is the simplest communication. How do we do it in a permissionless world? How do we manage that? And then we need reputation, because you want to make sure that only reputable entities can broadcast, can interact with the user. Digital content, like everything from music to video, from from text to even images. Like, how do we manage that in a more coherent way? How do we have CDNs that are serving this on the edge without relying on centralized servers and without censorship? Certification, right? How do we make sure that things are certified, truly certified by the originator? So this is where something like Calimero private shard is actually extremely useful, where the certificate issuer would be running the private shard, and then you can still prove the certificate on chain for other entities without revealing all of the kind of underlying information that led to the certification. Conflict resolution is huge, right? If we want to have real world interactions, people working together, we need ways to resolve conflicts around on-chain identities, right? Somebody said that they delivered the product, they launched it, they did the work, they delivered the kind of food, right? How do we resolve this if somebody doesn't disagree? And that leads to actually building a gig protocol, like ability to schedule work, to really get it paid and get it agreed. So I want to thank you. There's a lot to do in this ecosystem. The kind of all of those components are still out there to be built and innovate. And I invite all the developers here to start working on them. Go to near.org/grants if you want to apply for funding, as well as you can get connected to the EcoFunds through that. And please build on. Thank you.